The apartment smelled of fresh paint and something else, something stale, like dust undisturbed for too long. David stepped inside, dragging a single suitcase behind him. The room was small, a little outdated, but it was cheap, and in this part of the city, cheap meant a compromise. The landlord, an older man with a face like cracked leather, had barely said a word beyond what was necessary. He had handed over the keys, muttered something about keeping the noise down, and shuffled away without looking back. David hadn't minded. He liked being left alone. The first night was uneventful. He unpacked just enough to make the place livable and collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. The city buzzed beyond the window, but inside, the apartment was oddly quiet. Too quiet. He was used to the low hum of conversation from neighboring apartments, the distant clang of pipes, but here, nothing. Then, as he drifted toward sleep, he heard it. A voice. It was faint at first, just a murmur, seeping through the thin wall to his left. Someone was speaking, their words muffled, indistinct. It wasn't loud, just a soft, steady rhythm, rising and falling like a one-sided conversation. David ignored it. He was too tired to care. Besides, it was an old building. Thin walls were to be expected. The next morning, the city's early noise woke him before his alarm. He made coffee and sat by the window, watching the street below come to life. The voice from the night before was already forgotten. Days passed. The apartment became familiar, routine. He worked, came home, ate in front of the TV. But every night, just as he was about to sleep, the voice would return. It was always the same, a low murmur, never shouting, never angry, just the steady rise and fall of someone speaking in the dark. At first, David assumed it was his neighbor on the other side of the wall, but he never saw them. No one entered or left the apartment next door. No lights shone beneath the door. And yet, every night, the voice came. One evening, curiosity got the better of him. He pressed his ear against the wall, straining to make out the words. They were soft, almost too soft, but certain phrases cut through the static. Still waiting? Can't leave? Listen? David pulled back, heart hammering. It was just an old building, the walls carrying sounds in strange ways. That was all. But as the days wore on, the voice became harder to ignore. It started earlier, not just at night, but in the late afternoon. The same steady murmur, like someone deep in conversation. Then something changed. One night, as David lay in bed, the voice stopped. It had never stopped before, not like this. A sudden silence that pressed against him like a weight. And then for the first time, there was a different sound, a soft, deliberate knock right against the wall. David froze, his breath caught in his throat. He waited, counting the seconds in his head. Then another knock, slow, rhythmic. It came from the apartment next door, the one that, as far as he knew, no one lived in. David didn't sleep that night. David woke up groggy, his mind clouded with the weight of the previous night. The knocking had stopped at some point, but he hadn't slept after that. Instead, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for anything else, any movement, any voice, any sign that someone was actually there. Morning brought a strange sense of normalcy. Sunlight filtered through the blinds. The city hummed to life outside, and the weight of the night before felt almost silly in the daylight. But still, a gnawing unease clung to him. By noon, he decided he needed answers. David stepped out into the hall, stopping in front of the door to the neighboring apartment. He hesitated for a moment, before knocking. No response. He knocked again, harder this time. Silence. He pressed his ear to the door. Nothing. No movement, no shifting floorboards, nothing to indicate someone was inside. Finally, he gave up and went downstairs to find the landlord. The old man was in his tiny office behind the main entrance, hunched over a newspaper. He barely looked up when David walked in. David cleared his throat. "Hey, I had a question about my neighbor." The landlord didn't answer right away. He licked his finger, turned a page, and only then glanced up. "Which neighbor?" "The one next to me. In 3B." The landlord's expression didn't change, but something in his posture stiffened. "There's no one in 3B." David blinked. "What?" "It's been empty for months." David opened his mouth, closed it, and swallowed. "Are you sure?" The old man gave him a look. "I think I'd know who's renting my units." David shifted on his feet. "I hear someone every night talking through the wall." The landlord didn't answer right away. His fingers drummed against the newspaper, slow and deliberate. Then, without a word, he reached into his desk, pulled out a set of keys, and stood. "Come with me." David followed him back upstairs, his heart pounding. The landlord stopped in front of 3B, slid a key into the lock, and pushed the door open. The apartment was empty, not just unoccupied, empty. No furniture, no signs of life. Dust coated the hardwood floors, disturbed only by their footprints. David stepped inside hesitantly. The air was stale, thick with the smell of neglect. He turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. There was no way someone had been living here. No dishes, no personal belongings. Just a single bare mattress against the far wall, covered in dust. The landlord watched him. "See?" David swallowed hard. "But I hear someone." The old man's face remained unreadable. "Thin walls," he muttered. David wanted to argue, to insist that what he heard wasn't just sound carrying from another unit, but something in the landlord's expression made him stop. He knew something. Before David could press further, the old man turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in the vacant apartment. That night, David lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The silence pressed against him like a weight. And then, the voice returned. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just a low murmur anymore. It was whispering his name. David's breath hitched. The whisper was faint, almost delicate, threading through the silence of his darkened apartment. It carried no malice, no urgency, just the slow, deliberate weight of his own name slipping through the wall. He sat up, his pulse hammering against his ribs. The voice continued, software insistent. "David." His skin crawled. He scrambled out of bed, his feet hitting the cold floor, and backed away from the wall as if putting distance between them would make a difference. The whisper did not stop. If anything, it seemed clearer now, as though the wall itself was thinning, dissolving. He needed to leave. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand, his fingers shaking as he fumbled to turn on the flashlight. The dim glow illuminated the room in harsh shadows. He moved toward the door, his hand reaching for the knob. And then the knocking began. Not slow, not rhythmic, frantic. The wall shuddered under the force of it. Not just a knock anymore, pounding like fists, slamming against the other side with desperate force. David stumbled back, his breath ragged. The whispers grew louder, tangled with the relentless knocking. "David, David, David," his name over and over from inside the wall. He turned and bolted. The hallway outside was empty, silent, as though the madness was contained within his apartment alone. He didn't care. He ran. Down the stairs, past the office where the landlord's door was now shut, past the mailboxes where dust had settled thick in the corners, out into the night. The air was sharp and cold against his skin. He stopped at the curb, gulping down breaths, his body trembling with adrenaline. He had no plan, no idea where to go. He just knew he couldn't go back inside. But then, from the darkened window of his apartment, something moved, a shadow. Not a trick of the light, not his imagination. A shape, standing where he had been just moments ago, watching, and then slowly, so slowly, it raised one hand and knocked. David turned and ran, disappearing into the city, never once looking back.